I wanted to take a minute today at the beginning of the podcast and say thank you to our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. Huber has actually been a sponsor of the podcast since 2020 when we decided to start this little endeavor. Without our sponsors, this content is probably not something that happens. But I think the best part about having Huber as a partner on this is it's an incredibly authentic alignment. Peter, Steve, and I all use Huber Woods. I've been using Advantech Subfloor for coming on probably 21 years now. I've been using Zip System and Zip System with the insulation on the back, the Zip R, since 2013. It's a system that I believe in. That systems approach where things play well together. They have design parameters that allow you to use their system for what you're working on. It works. Their tech support's there. Their knowledge is there. I've never had an issue with their product, and it's a great thing that they've decided to sponsor the podcast. So thank you, Huber Engineered Woods.
Welcome to the Unbuilt It podcast. This week, I'm your host, Pete Yost. I got with me my good buddy, Steve Basic.
What's up, buddy?
But special treat. The special treat is not that Jay's not here. Jake's not here, but that could be part of it, right? Our special guest is Nathan Yost, my brother. Hey, Nathan.
Hello. What's up, Nathan? Steve. It's a head on a screen.
He's a head on a screen. He's a talking head.
I'm in Chicago.
And here's the deal. First of all, this is a bit of a reunion. Nathan and I and Steve were part of a company called 3D Building Solution back in the early 2000s. And so that was pretty cool. We all worked together in a company that focused on performance of buildings. But we all worked at Building Science Corporation. That's where we learned an awful lot of what we know about buildings. But Nathan has continued to be involved in a special way because he's a pulmonary doctor, retired. There just aren't that many people that understand pulmonary health and also building science. So I get to call my brother for family health issues, but also he and I talk at least once a week about building projects that I'm working on because it's real. We talked about this a little earlier that the cool thing about Nathan as a building scientist is the diagnostic techniques he learned in medicine can be perfectly transferred over to buildings. It's the same analytical process. But the reason we pulled Nathan in today is because each of us increasingly is dealing with specific clients for either renovation or new construction with very specific health conditions. And so we thought what a great way to bring in Nathan to give his perspective. So Nathan, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about, you have a client that you've been working with for almost 20 years or over 20 years?
It's now over 20 years. I first got contacted, or Building Science Corporation got contacted, and I ended up going down to look at the condo, single family condo, actually a duplex. And she had been diagnosed with multiple chemical sensitivity, and actually had gone on disability, college professor, but was unable to basically go outside of confined living space.
Wow.
And so I worked with them on the design of what they did to change that living space, and also a second home that they inherited in a different town. And so over the last 20 years, about every 3 or 4 years, I would get an email saying, "Are you available?" Pretty much just as
if she couldn't go outside, how did she get to the second home?
Well, no, she actually outside, depending upon outside conditions,
was okay.
Fine.
Yeah,
I got you.
She obviously can't live all outside.
And Nathan, you were involved in both building enclosure and mechanical issues, right? Mechanical system?
With the mechanical contractor.
Yeah. And
it took a while, but they did find a good general contractor and a good HVAC contractor.
And so, Nathan, this was mostly about your building science capabilities, but was it simply a reassurance factor for her about your tuning into MCS, mechanical?
Well, I think it was, but it had nothing to do with the original called BSc. And I can't tell you, because it was not relevant, how she has actually been treated.
Interesting.
Medically. So I was dealing basically with the building. But I think the fact that I understood both health issues in general as well as the building made it much more comfortable for her in terms of dealing with me. I could also say it just because I'm such a nice person to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm laughing so vigorously there, Nathan.
No, that's okay.
I saw no humor in that.
So I even got, and then I thought I was done with her.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard of her a couple of years. And then an issue came up to just talk about how things can happen that you wouldn't think. A new neighbor moved in the
other dude
that was across a yard from her.
Oh, wow.
They put down a massive amount of pine straw. And I wouldn't have thought that was an issue.
Wow.
It turns out that the chemical that's off gas from pine straw can really affect some people, and she was one of them.
So, Nathan,
what I helped with on that issue was designing the fence that would go between her property and the next property.
Wow.
And since they knew pretty much the wind pattern, I've not designed fences before, but in terms of making it an attractive barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the good news related to that is they loved the fence, but about the time they got the fence completed, the owners of that, who never really fully occupied that house, sold it. And then they got a call shortly after that from the neighbors saying, well, will you be upset if we get rid of all the pine straw that's on the property?
And Nathan, so there was some volatile organic compound that was natural, but she had trouble with.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Steve, you also have some clients with very specific...
but I have some other general questions that I think I want to ask for the audience.
Sure.
So, one, I don't know, 100 years ago, maybe this conversation didn't exist. Okay. Now, is that because of the buildings we're building, or B, our ability to understand the buildings we're building, or C, the ability to diagnose somebody's problem and not just say, hey, you got the flu, suck it up?
I think it's a mixture of all three. I mean, if you think about it in terms of houses, we know were much, much leakier in the past.
But in terms of pine straw, right? I mean, it's like that is an example of a non-building, interior building material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and we don't know, in her particular case, I don't know if anybody does, what sort of triggered the initial reaction in her body. One thing we do know is once certain things happen, then things that didn't bother the person before bother them now. And just to give you a little anecdote, my wife was never bothered by the smell of coffee, perfume, or cigarette smoke until pregnancy with our first child. Since then, she cannot be in some town hall meetings, for example, where the smell of perfume will just cause her to get sometimes chest tightness or headaches.
So,
and I always thought that was a little bit weird until I learned something more recently, which is, well, I knew all along that to tolerate, this is an aside, but to tolerate a body within the mother's body, and that fetus is half father, half mother. So the immune system gets turned back to tolerate that foreign body. two things are interesting related to that. I learned very early in medical care that the only time I ever saw a young woman on a ventilator for flu was when that woman was pregnant.
Wow.
And I never sort of put two and two together, other than they sort of said, oh, well, pregnancy affects blah, 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 blah. But we now know that what we used to consider the placenta, the blood organ that nutrients go from the mother to the fetus, we consider that to be tight, so that there was not leakage of blood. So when my daughter had her pregnancy, and I asked her whether she was going to have any genetic testing at all, she said, oh, well, I already know the sex of the baby. I said, how? She goes, from a blood test for my blood. And I said, you're kidding me. She said, no. And then I said, well, what about the other subjects? Oh, they can do almost all the genetic testing from my blood.
Wow.
And it was like the light bulb went off. It meant that placenta is not such a barrier.
Right.
And so she's got cells, or at least DNA, floating around in her blood that is from the fetus.
Wow.
So we do know that there are things that are going on in the body that we didn't know about 20, 30, 40 years ago.
And does that mean, Nathan, that multiple chemical sensitivity in particular is more common in women than it is men because of this, do you think?
Yes, and although because there is no specific blood test for multiple chemical sensitivity, it's really a clinical diagnosis. Women tend to see doctors more often with those types of complaints.
Yeah. Well,
we don't really know the answer to, but most of the autoimmune diseases and a lot of the reactive diseases are more common in women than in men. And in part, that's because women's, in general, immune system is stronger than males.
So, Nathan, I think the one thing we want to sort of emphasize throughout this is that there's plenty of medical support for the fact that these are just not weaker people. They're not people that are being a little bit neurotic, that these are actual medical conditions that we have to take seriously.
In general, yes. Not all the medical community thinks that some of these are real diseases. Again, because with most diseases, we can test and get a blood test or an X-ray or a biopsy and get a sort of clinically proven diagnosis. Whereas with some of these disorders, at least to this date, we don't have a confirming test.
Interesting.
To go back to this client, one of the things that I worked with her the most on was that she had to figure out what materials she could tolerate in her environment as they did their renovation. Now, one of the ironies is, and I only ever said this to her once, they probably could not have picked a much worse building to have picked for her, but they liked the location. Gasoline had been stored in the walkout basement.
Wow.
Along with some other chemicals. So it took a long time for that to sort of get cleaned out.
Yeah.
In addition to which, it's a duplex. And as we all know, that the barrier between the other duplex is not impermeable.
Yeah, it's kind of like a building placenta.
Yeah. You can't control what the person does in
the other side
half of your building, other than violation of the condo rules, maybe.
Right.
So what we had to work with her is I could tell her certain classes of things that I know would be a problem, but she basically had to test things, and she did that by having them in a Ziploc bag in small quantities, and then she would periodically open them and get exposed to it. And so that was a tedious process.
Yeah.
But it was something that, she knew she had to go through. And one little story.
Imagine if you had the sensitivity to plastic. Every time you open up the Ziploc bag, you'd be sensitivity to everything.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Right?
It depends on the type of plastic.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like the Ziploc bag, if that was the problem, you could be as sensitive to everything that you put in it.
If that's the case, you would probably be bothered by the bag even if it wasn't open.
Well, I mean, I think the first test would be to just put the bag in, sniff the bag for a week.
Right. You're absolutely right.
Establish a baseline.
Yeah.
So one of the things that she realized that she did not, because of the issue with mold, any new work that they did would be with Densarmer drywall, which is got not two things. One, it doesn't have paper.
Yep.
And two, it doesn't have any starch in the gypsum compound. So that's why it's very resistant to mold growth. So she had to arrange to get that because nobody stocked it in Charlottesville. So she had a truck sent down to the plant in Georgia. Got it. But what they didn't arrange for was for that truck never to be in a warehouse where there were diesel engines running.
Oh, my goodness.
So
it absorbed?
It gets to the job site, and she was smart enough before it got installed to go take a whiff of it. And she immediately recognized these fuel exhaust. And so that went back, and they then arranged when the next truck went down and got it, that it came directly from there or was always, outside. It was never where the inside of the truck was exposed to diesel fuel.
And so, Nathan, we're still at the stage where on an individual basis, probably we're going to have the material sort of guinea pig tested with the person who's got the sensitivities.
Yes, although, let's take coatings, paints, that there are paints that are low VOC, some that are labeled as zero VOC. When you look closely, are not zero VOCs, but at least you can start out with a lot of products now that will probably work, so that it's not like you have to go through large numbers of products to determine what will work.
So, Steve, tell us a little bit about some clients that you had and their particular needs.
Yeah, we're doing a new house for a woman where we have basically no adhesives, no engineered wood, no engineered lumber. No glues, nothing. So, we're doing a precast foundation system. The floor frame is all wood trusses, metal plate, no adhesive.
Wow.
The floor sheathing is a 5/4 by 8 tongue and groove board. And then we'll have our finished floor on that. The wall is a perfect wall. It's a double stud wall, but we're using the brother of Densarmer. We're using Den's Shield because it comes with a applied air barrier that you can put on the outside. And use it. And yes, and all of the interior finishes are Densarmer.
So is that client familiar with or working with Paula Baker Laporte's? She's
familiar with the book.
Yeah.
But she's an older woman, so she's been around. She's actually quite informed.
Yeah, about the whole topic.
Yes.
And are you doing any specific material testing with her at this point or not?
No, we're just not doing any of all of that.
Okay,
stuff.
so it's a particular.
Yeah. And to make it even more complicated, we have an interior pool house.
Ooh. Wow. Is it going to be a saltwater pool as opposed to chlorinated?
Yeah, I think that one, because I'm doing a couple projects with her, that one might be a saltwater pool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, and you have, so we have the situation where we know there are people that are either think or they are sensitized to mold.
Oh, you're not going to tell this woman she's not sensitive.
Although, Nathan, do we have a specific test for that? For whether you're sensitive to mold or not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
It's not a specific thing that I have
Yeah.
kept up in the literature.
So tell us a little bit about another project you have going with a completely different sensitivity.
So we have another couple that believes they're extremely sensitive to mold. Believe it or not, they lived in Florida. So it's like, yeah, I guess if you're going to find out you're sensitive to mold, that's a hell of a place to start. Right. But they have since moved out west to a very dry, arid climate. And the new home will be ICF out exterior wall frame and all of the
above and below grade.
It's there's no basement. It's like 28 inch.
Yeah.
There's not a lot below grade.
Yep.
And the interior is all metal framed.
So, I think one of the takeaways here is...
Oh, and they're totally afraid of like leaks. So we have like mechanical rooms that back up to plumbing and bathrooms. So literally you can go in at any time in the life of the house and do a visual inspection of all the plumbing in the wall.
Wow.
Steve, you bring up a great point there. One of the things that has amazed me related to that is the inaccessibility of the plumbing for most shower stalls.
Yeah.
You've got to tear the place apart.
Well, in this house here, we need it's a slab on grade. We need a mechanical room. So I just placed the mechanical rooms between two bathrooms.
There you go. Why fight it?
And now you go in and it's all open stud. If there's a leak, you're going to see it.
Yeah. I'm going to push it a little bit more because you have another client with a special consideration related to wiring.
Yeah, to EMF.
So that's electromagnetic fields.
Yes. And they actually bought a site that I'm learning this. I mean, I haven't had time to research it, but I know you had mentioned it, you didn't, but Nathan, do you know what a dead zone is?
No. I'm not.
So a dead zone is a piece of land or area that doesn't have any EMF in it.
Really?
And so the property that they bought is a dead zone. Like there is no high tension lines for miles. There's no buried cables that are running down through the woods or any of that. So they're in a total dead zone.
How are they getting their power then?
Well, the power will, yes. There's areas where it's going to come in, but we're also going to do things, or we're doing things like every bedroom's going to have a kill switch. So when you go to bed at night, you kill the power to that room and shut it down.
I was telling Steve that I was working with a company with Bill Reed, who is a sustainable architect and sort of I think one of the godfathers, with a fellow from National Resource Defense Council, creating the LEAD program. But there was a guy there who was part of their investigative team, and he was convinced that his family was reacting to EMFs. They had a kill switch, which was the 200 amp breaker. They turned off their power every night. They shut the whole house down, and they claimed that they slept better. And so, this is one thing I wanted to have as another takeaway here.
We're going to have one outlet, I believe, is going to be live in the room because they want the ability. Should they have to do an air cleaner or a humidifier or something?
Oh, right.
That they don't want to be. They want to be able to operate.
But I think the message here is it's not our job to tell these folks that they're right or they're wrong, right?
I tell people. My way of saying that is I tell every client, listen, everybody has a story. You're rich, you're not so rich, you have issues with mold, you have this, you don't like orange, your favorite color is purple, whatever your case is. Everybody has a story. My job's not here to critique your story. My job is you give me the set of parameters, I provide you a home based on that set of parameters. And the interesting thing that I know you'll appreciate is, like, we just had a meeting last week in review of the floor plan, and we were talking, and it's like she was concerned about the proximity of her bedroom to the kitchen, like all of the appliances and stuff. So we have a pantry and a walk-in closet between their bedroom and the kitchen.
And Nathan, I don't know if you remember, but one of my first research projects at the NHB Research Center was the Enerjoy radiant ceiling panels.
Yes.
Where, because it's an inductive field across like a 2-foot wide stretch, you get the development of electromagnetic fields, because whenever you separate the positive and the negative, one of the results is as an EMF. But in working with a couple of electrical engineers at the research center, they said, yes, but EMF drops to the 4th power of distance.
Right.
So it's incredibly sensitive to how far away that takes place. So we actually had a Gaussimeter. Gauss is the unit of measure. Also,
too, is because I don't know a whole lot. I'm certainly learning quickly. If you put does barriers matter in that equation? Like, it's one thing to say, I'm going to put the refrigerator in my bed. I'm going to go from 10 feet to 20 feet. But if I insert a walk-in closet that's filled with clothing, does that make a difference beyond the fact that it's just 20 feet?
I think the answer is no, it does not make a difference.
Okay. So EMF is kind of agnostic towards barrier types.
It could be that you got to put up a lead shield as opposed to...
So, but don't they make drywall or something that has a plate?
They do, but I'm not sure that addresses the way that electromagnetic fields are generated and propagate. I don't know the answer to that.
It may depend on the material.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
again, I don't know for certain.
So there is the issue of how sensitive somebody might be, but there's also the issue of if it drops at the 4th power, that's an advantage, right? Because the smaller the field, the more quickly you can move away from that generation.
Yes.
So there's a bunch of things to learn there.
And they believe they've had, medical issues, nosebleeds, all kinds of stuff that they definitely equate to the proximity of.
It's interesting that you mentioned that in terms of having one outlet in the room because of an air cleaner or something. But what that means in terms, if you could have that as far away from the bed.
Yes, it is going to be the furthest away from the bed.
Right
at the head of the bed or something. Right. You're not plugging your clock radio in.
If it drops off at the 4th power, 10 feet's a hell of a lot more than 2 feet.
Oh, and the other thing is that they're also mold concerned.
Yeah.
So we're going to do things like, we have a living room, or not a living room, we have a laundry room that has a bathroom up above. There's no drywall. It's all open framing, and the plumbing will just get run nice because, again, it's access to visual access.
So we're going to have some great resources to put with this podcast. But I wanted to make sure that we're connecting this back to building science in the way that, except for the discussion of EMF, we're mainly talking about things related to moisture, because it's the key of so many special sensitivities that people have. I do want to ask you one quick question about the EMF project. Do you have an electrical engineer or a consultant working? Interesting. Do you think you will?
I don't know. These people are very in tune with their environment and what their needs are. And as much as I would love to have somebody like that, I'm not sure they will understand them as good as they do. Yeah. They understand themselves.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I tell all clients, you're the expert of you. Mm-hmm. Like, I can design a house to do, a family room to do anything, but you're the one that's going to use it.
Yeah.
Are you going to go in there and read and relax, or are you looking for a place to have, Super Bowl parties? Those are two different rooms.
Yeah.
And it's the same with all of this stuff that all three of these clients are very, very in tune with their body and its relationship to the built environment.
So I wanted to, Nathan, also include, even if we have to do it briefly, that at the most recent Building Science Corporation Summer Symposium, there was a presentation by Dr. Ava King with aura and viroscience. And she used a bunch of terms that I had never heard before. except with a client that I had in Texas that said that he had children that were behaving erratically based on stuff that was in their home. And he used some acronyms like CIRS, which is CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. There was some discussion of PANS, PANS, pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome. All of things I thought, are these real? And then finally, he said, we've just arranged to have our home cleansed of actinos, which is a shorthand way of saying actinobacteria that are often found in water-damaged buildings that produce biotoxins. So builders and architects are going to continue to sort of get slammed with stuff that is cutting-edge medical conditions. And it's cool to have a doctor like Ava King, who is a board-certified specialist in this area. So it's not as if she's making this stuff up. But she also ties that very closely to building science, because almost all of these conditions relate to what the water management is in that particular building. Yeah. Nathan, as far as you know, you've reviewed Dr. Ava King's presentation that she gave at Summer Symposium. Those are actual medical conditions. The problem is we don't have tests for those, correct?
Pretty much so. It's an area where things are changing rapidly, and people are doing more and more testing of blood for immunological issues. Mm-hmm. But it takes a while before things get really, clearly defined and sort of accepted broadly by the medical community.
Yeah, you need to develop enough samples, right? To kind of say, okay, this really is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and when you don't have a definitive diagnosis, then in terms of what's effective treatment,
mm-hmm.
It starts out being very anecdotal,
mm-hmm.
which basically means I did this and I got better. And my comment as a physician to that usually was, you did this while you got better. And I'm not saying it wasn't cause and effect, but on one individual, unless you repeatedly expose
mm-hmm.
and something happens, or repeatedly treat and something happens, you're guessing, or you're making an assumption that may not be valid.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that of those diagnoses, I just lost that list, PANS is the only one that is associated with an infection,
mm-hmm.
that is not caused by the environment.
Yeah, I think the one that was pandas, that was associated with streptococcal infection.
Pandas, yes.
Yeah.
A subset of PANS.
Yeah.
And in that situation, treatment with antibiotics, but it may have sensitized the person to other things in the environment.
So I think one of the things we're learning, and I remember talking to an endocrinologist about this. She said, there's just so many things about human interactions and systems in the body that we still don't understand yet. And because it's hard to isolate all these effects, it's hard to make definitive
Well, it's
statements.
an environment that's constantly changing.
Well,
you think about the house that any one of us three grew up in.
Yeah.
I have chemicals and stuff in my house now that were never available in the house that I grew up in. And it's on both sides, right? There were some that were very harsh back then, and some not so harsh that were very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of that cumulative effort of everything that was in that house is totally different.
Steve, you'll get a kick out of this one. One of the slides that I used to use in presentations was, there are more natural poisons than man-made poisons, but we're working very hard to catch up.
Yeah. like in most things.
So Nathan, can't thank you enough, to come out of retirement to work with Steve and I. We will post some good resources, and I'll talk to you about before I post those, Nathan. But I think the key thing is a lot of this related to moisture. It's not our job to tell the client whether they're healthy or not healthy. And if they feel they have a pretty good understanding and are willing to build on that, then that's what we do.
I mean, if you think they're unhealthy, you think they're crazy, don't do the job.
Oh, there you go.
Don't take it on, right? I mean, you can't do that project and not be sympathetic to their needs.
Exactly.
Right?
And also, Stephen, and I'm glad you said what you did, because one of my complaints with designers, and it's not always architects, is that they're designing too often what they would want.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, they're not going to live in it. You're not going to live in it. So
Right.
That's what.
In all honesty, I wouldn't want to live in most of my clients' houses. Their choices are pretty funny. But.
So thanks a ton, Nathan.
Hey, don't let them go yet. I got a question for Nathan.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have a little fun. All right. What is orange and sounds like a parrot?
Donald Trump?
Nope.
No, a parrot.
A carrot.
Oh.
Wow.
I don't know. You saved a weak one for Nathan.
That was a good one.
Thanks a lot for listening, folks.
I guess we're done.
If you would like to submit a question, it's questions at unbuilditpodcast.com. Nathan, thanks a lot for taking time today. Really appreciate it.
Would you prefer if I said I'm reading a book on anti-gravity? It's really hard to put down. Bye-bye.
See you, Nathan. Thanks again.